make sure you hit that subscribe button.
This time, the closing arguments are set to begin. In the trial of Karmelo Anthony, a Texas teenager accused of stabbing and killing a competitor at a high school track meet. Anthony faces life in prison if convicted of murder. Brooke Taylor on this trial since the beginning, live outside the Collins County Courthouse in McKinney, Texas. And Brooke, hello.
Hi, Bill. Well, this trial has moved along a lot quicker than really anyone expected. The defense rested after calling 6 witnesses and ultimately decided not to call up Karmelo Anthony to the stand to testify in his own murder trial. So just as a recap right here, Karmelo Anthony is charged with murder. He pleaded not guilty after admitting to fatally stabbing 17-year-old Austin Metcalf during a high school track meet last April. The two teens didn't know each other and attended different schools. Investigators say the confrontation started after Anthony was sitting under a tent belonging to Metcalf's team. The defense has spent days arguing that Anthony acted in self-defense after Metcalf pushed him first, and now the question is whether they gave jurors enough evidence to believe it. The defense called one of Anthony's former teammates. He described Anthony as, quote, distraught after the stabbing, said he heard him crying and say, "I told him not to touch me." Now, prosecutors called 21 witnesses, including student after student, who testified that Anthony was repeatedly asked to leave and that he was the aggressor. Now, one witness testified that Metcalf told Anthony, quote, "I'm not going to fight you at a track meet, dude." Another witness testified Anthony responded, "F y'all, I'm not going to leave," and later, quote, "touch me and find out." Now, legal experts say the judge could allow the jury to consider the lesser charge of manslaughter in addition to murder. And if the jury doesn't reach a verdict by the end of the day, the judge said they're going to be sequestered. They won't be allowed to watch TV or have their phones or social media. We are just waiting for those closing arguments now to start, Bill.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah, so we now know that Karmelo Anthony has been found guilty and he has been sentenced to 35 years, right? And so I want to break down the conversation in different pieces. So first, I think the jury got the verdict correct in that Karmelo Anthony is guilty of murder. And I also think that his defense did a poor job or a subpar and not optimal job at presenting the case. And I think Karmelo Anthony also did some things that hindered his case as well, including not getting on the stand, especially since his main witness turned on him and said that he was the aggressor. He was the one escalating. I also think that Karmelo Anthony admitting to stabbing the boy in the beginning also hindered his self-defense case. And the other thing that I think is really important is that Karmelo Anthony seemed to have some premeditation and some plans to do this in the beginning. He probably carried that knife around everywhere he went, but when he says keep talking and watch and find out, that means he already has it in his mind that he can use that knife to do whatever he wants to in that situation if he needs to. And in this situation, it didn't seem like he needed to use that knife. They asked him to leave, to move repeatedly. He chose not to. He continued to escalate the situation, and then the victim in this case pushed him. And now there is a weight difference, about 100 pounds. So there is a big disparity between them. And what some may say, that's a push is not really that threatening. But some will say because of the weight difference, that actually is a huge threat, in which some people are using that to justify Karmelo Anthony's actions, in which I don't think that's a good justification, because in the end, he should not have been there, one. Second, he could have left at any time. They said it was raining and had different conditions in which that is why he was under there, more like a canopy and not like a tent that you unzip and walk through. That's why he was there, because his team or his school didn't have one, and so he was just trying to not get wet. I think that's what they said, but he should have just left. That simple. He did not need to stay there. He did not need to continue to escalate the situation, and after being pushed, push back or just leave like they've been asking you to do in the beginning. Right? That doesn't make much sense to me. I don't think because someone pushes you and you still have the ability to leave that you stay there. And also, I think if Karmelo Anthony was found not guilty, that would set a bad precedent, meaning when other cases like this come up that are similar and lawyers want to reference this Karmelo Anthony case, they would be able to say, well, you know what? my client was the aggressor, but he was also claiming self-defense. I think it's very difficult to win a self-defense case when the defendant is the aggressor and the one that has killed somebody else in this instance. I think that's very difficult to prove and a hard case to win. Now, when it comes to the sentencing, 35 years, I think there is no prison sentence that will equate to justice when someone's life is lost. And in this situation, one life is completely gone. Karmelo Anthony, there is the potential that he loses his life in prison. That is not an uncommon thing to happen, but he is going to be able to have some type of life. Right now, he just won't have his freedom, but he still has his life. His parents can still call him, talk to him, visit him, see him. I think in these prisons, they be having iPads, they be having snacks, parties. He's going to be able to get his education. I'm not sure if he graduated because it's been over a year and he was 17 when this took place, but he's going to be able to get his GED. They have college courses in prison. They have anger management. He's going to have so many chances to continue to live and better his life. And in Texas, it is kind of averaged out that most people do 50 to 60% of their sentence. So in about 20 years, he will be out and he will still be under 40, meaning he will have the approximate total lifespan of people is around 70, 80. He'll still have 30 years on this earth to make something of his life and make up for what he has done. So that can never equate to someone losing their life. That family, that child is never coming back. 17 years old. They're not going to see him graduate high school, graduate college. They're not going to see him ever again. There's no other milestone that family is going to get to experience, and a twin lost his twin. I know it's cool to say, "What's up, twin?" But when that's your real twin, I've heard that they have some special bond that cannot even be explained, that cannot be replicated with just brother and sister, siblings type of relationship. There's a different bond when it is your identical twin. And so I think the jury got the verdict correct. They got the sentencing correct. And now what I want to talk about is the race component. Coming off the Rick Child situation, I think everybody is riled up. And the Chud the Builder situation, that has only gotten people more amped up when it comes to race, especially black versus any other race. Specifically white, you know the history between white and black, and then with Asian, you know what happened with blacks and Asians. I think it happened in California and that whole situation there. I think the race component is playing a huge part, and I think it's playing a huge part for the wrong reasons. I think what needs to be emphasized is why are so many of our black and brown kids being involved in situations like this? We just had a 14-year-old with a gun. Why is a 14-year-old having a gun? Whether you believe they got the case right or whatever, that's different. Why does the 14-year-old have a gun in that case? Why is it in this situation nobody is ever holding the parents accountable for the actions of minors? Well, I believe that the parents should also be arrested and have to serve some time for what a 17-year-old, a minor, has done. Because a lot of this does boil down to parenting. And the reason I brought up the other case is because if that boy, what's his name, Cyrus, forgot his last name, sorry, Cyrus, if he had had some parental guidance and a male figure, mentor, or somebody to look up to that he'd want to emulate, he does not have a gun in that scenario. He does not have a gun waving it on social media. And I think that played a huge part in the verdict in that case. And in this scenario, and it's not just any male figure, you have to have a strong male figure, one that is not led by his emotions. If there was one of those men in this boy's life right here, this situation doesn't take place. He doesn't react based off his emotions and go and stab this man. He stabbed him in his heart. He put some force behind that stab. It wasn't just a slice, right? Why didn't he just slice him and run? He stabbed through him and left a 2-inch gash that punctured the victim's heart. That's crazy. So I say all this to say I think that the adults and the parents in this situation need to be held more accountable, but it just so happens that in so many of these situations, especially with black people, they never want to hold the parents accountable. They barely even hold the kids accountable. They always get mad at the authoritative figure, at the administration, and put the blame on somebody else. But I think it is time that people actually start caring about their kids and raising their children instead of just being babysitters and watching after their children, because it is so disheartening to see so many situations where black people keep getting involved in these type of scenarios. How many cases are we gonna have of kids getting killed, kids killing kids, kids being involved in these situations that they shouldn't even be in? Why is this so common? But yet you see Black Lives Matter come out. You see Al Sharpton come out. You see Benjamin Crump come out. You seeing all these figureheads who only come out during race-related tragedies come out and try to stand behind the people, galvanize the people. You see people outside the courtroom saying, you know what? Whether he's guilty or not, we gonna ride for him. Whether he did it on purpose and whether he admitted he did it on purpose or not, we gonna ride for him. We don't care, because it's black versus white. No matter what the details of the case are, they're just gonna ride for Karmelo Anthony, even if he was 100% wrong, which he was. This is problematic. You see people outside the courtroom, grown black people outside the courtroom, getting arrested. Why? Because they causing havoc. They're committing crimes. So it's hard to expect the kids to do better when the adults is doing the same thing, and that's where the kids is learning it from. So I think people are focusing on race, saying that's why he was convicted, because if it was a white boy, he would have never got convicted. Oh, blah, 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 blah. Whatever. That is not even a part of this conversation for me, because somebody has died. And another kid has lost his youth. He's still alive, but he's lost all his youth. He's going to be a full grown man when he gets out of prison. And even if he do the whole 35 years, what will he? He'll be in his 50s, 52 or something like that. Still got life left, got 20 to 30 years left. So I'm not hearing it. The race component, I don't understand why people always go and use that as a scapegoat for every situation to try to justify people's actions and compare these other races. I'm not with that. And the last thing I want to say is, please be careful, because I'm not going to use this as a justification, but I do want to use this to emphasize the unpredictability and the degree of psychosis that people are going through, and the lack of emotional maturity that people have in today's times, and how you need to keep yourself safe. So one thing I always do is I always think ahead. And so I don't honk my horn at people. I don't have road rage. I don't chase after people. I don't do that. Why? Because I recognize that that person in that car, if they're crazy enough to be weaving through traffic, going 100, tailgating, brake checking, yelling, cussing, throwing their middle finger up, even when they're in the wrong, if they're crazy enough to do that, I don't know what else they can do. And so I'm not going to honk my horn and provoke them. Just go around me. I let them go, because it is just driving. I'm more focused on getting to my destination safely than I am worried about the path and who gets to go ahead of me and who gets there a second earlier. And I say all of this to say that the victim should have never put his hands on Karmelo Anthony. He should have never done it. But just because he does doesn't mean that he should have died. But when you put your hands on somebody, you never know what they're going to do. You never know what emotional state somebody is in and when they're going to crash out. And so I say, y'all keep your hands to yourself. Remember the goal. Do not focus on the journey. Focus on the goal. Because if the goal is worth having, the journey is not that important. Of course, you're going to learn a lot of life lessons throughout the journey, but if your point is getting to your destination, if the point is to live your life, if the point is the goal, do not allow some situation that is taking place on the journey to hinder you from achieving your goal. Do not let 30 seconds cause you to get 35 years in prison. Because people today are nuts. They've lost it. So y'all, please be careful. I think this is a tragic situation. Nobody had to die in this situation. I think there were a lot of preventative measures that could have been taken place, including teaching this boy Karmelo Anthony some emotional control and having better parents, because this is ridiculous. I hate to see two kids, one life is gone, one life wasted in prison. But guys, let me know your thoughts down below in the comments. I'm out of here. Peace.